This episode, I'm really reminded about gratitude. I'm grateful for all of you who keep sticking around, all of you who share, comment, like, and push this message. And really grateful for Erin for sharing the story. I want to share this quote with y'all from Jesus himself. Live a life full of humility, gratitude, intellectual curiosity, and never stop learning. Hope y'all enjoy this. Oh, and also, Sony, I'm aware of your 873 shutter issue. So if you guys start seeing the frames kind of flicker, that's where that's coming from. So, we're working on it. If you're into buying cameras, I know a guy who needs some new ones. Stay tuned. Yeah, thank you everybody for joining this next show. Today I have my good buddy Erin. She's going to talk to us about something that's a little important and it affects a lot of folks across the globe. Hey, Erin.
Hey.
How's it going?
It's going good. Thank you for having me here
Thanks.
on the night show.
That's what this is, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So for reference, because I'll be bouncing around too much, we are in Juneau right now. It's, if you could see outside right now, it's a lovely afternoon. It's pitch black dark. It's 5 o'clock in the afternoon. Not 5 o'clock. Oh, it's so dark at 5. No, it's dark. It's been dark for like 2 hours.
Yeah.
But we're gonna have a very deep, bright, enlightening, and also grateful conversation. One full of gratitude and understanding, and we're gonna talk about some real subjects, and I hope everybody kind of enjoys it. So, Erin, take it away.
Yeah. Hi. I don't know how bright. I think there are going to be aspects of brightness within this, but
much like winter in Juneau, aspects of brightness.
Yeah.
I'm very grateful for this.
We're deep in the seasonal depression here right now.
Oh, in the throes of seasonal depression.
Yeah. So I'm going to talk a lot about diabetes today, and I do want to preface this whole conversation. I can only tell what my experience has been.
Yeah.
And because a lot of what I'm going to talk about is how health is an individual experience. There is no blanket statement of what health looks like. Health is very much individualistic. So I can only talk about what my experience is and how it's affected me, and specifically within the realm of type 1 diabetes. And in order to do that, you have to go back to 2007.
Okay.
So in 2007, my family went on a family vacation to Las Vegas, Nevada.
As one's family does.
As one family does. I grew up in Wisconsin, so we went from Wisconsin to there. And throughout this family vacation, my brother, who is 4 years younger than me, I was in 7th grade, he was in 4th grade. And he, throughout the whole trip, was constantly drinking water, was constantly going to the bathroom. There was one point where my dad, me, and him, my brother, went out to go look at all the strips, kind of just at each hotel, because that's what you do there. Mm-hmm. And at each hotel, my brother was going to the bathroom 20 within an hour of each stop, going to the bathroom every single time. And my dad thought it was weird, but he thought it was oh, he just wants to check out the bathroom, he's he's a little kid, whatever.
Right.
And hindsight being 2020, there are also other weird things at the time, but my parents wanted to have an anniversary night, so we were staying with family friends, just me and my brother. And when we were alone with the family friends, my brother he had a seizure.
Oh shit.
While we were being watched, and so then the family friends called my parents, had my parents come back to their house, and they were like, "Hey, does Jack have diabetes?" And the reason why they brought that up is because the husband was a type 2 diabetic, and so he kind of knew what the symptoms were.
Right.
And my mom, who's a nurse, was things were clicking. Mm-hmm. The symptoms were showing, and they had a blood glucose monitor there, which is something they use to check your blood sugar. So they checked my brother's blood sugar, and I can't remember the exact number, but it was really high. It was definitely over 300. So if you don't have a working pancreas, that you check your blood sugar and your blood sugar is really high, that's you have diabetes, some form, either type 2 or type 1. But it is not normal to have a blood sugar over like 150 if you have a working pancreas. So my mom knew. She was a nurse. She automatically knew, like, this is what this means. And that moment, I remember, like, my mom, like, wailing. And she was in the other room. And like, it's traumatic for me because I remember it, the perspective of being in the other room, and it wasn't happening to me. And I didn't really know the gravity of the situation, but my mom, who's a nurse, does. So then we spent the rest of our family vacation essentially at like the children's hospital in Vegas, which was a blessing, though, that we know that, because had my brother been diagnosed in Wisconsin, we would have been in like a smaller hospital with not a great educational like hospital.
Yeah, a little more limited.
Yeah. But we were in one of the largest children's hospital on the West Coast when we were in Vegas. So we had the best of the best at our fingertips at the diagnosis, which really is such a critical time period if you're at the time of being diagnosed with diabetes. So that was my first introduction into my life with diabetes, and that was as a sibling. And when we were at the hospital, I remember clear as day the doctor saying to me, there is a chance that you may develop diabetes before the time you turn like 19. If you turn 19 and you don't get diagnosed, the chances of you being diagnosed with type 1 goes down significantly. Yeah. And so that was pretty wild, because I still remember that to this day, being in the hospital room and them telling me that. But so then Jack grows up, and I get to experience diabetes as a secondhand. I still have the privilege of having a clean bill of health. I really didn't have any medical issues growing up, aside from like the occasional like broken bone or something like that. But no major surgery, no like weird medical things. Just truly a clean bill of health, and just being exposed to diabetes on the second hand, watching my brother. And so what that means for me is watching him check his blood sugar every morning, checking his blood sugar like 4 times a day, treating every time you eat. So what type 1 diabetes is your pancreas stops producing insulin, essentially. Right. It's an autoimmune disease. It is naturally occurring. Scientists are not sure why, whether it's genetics or environmental or whatever. They're not sure why, but ultimately he did nothing to bring this upon himself. Right. And diabetes is like a whole gray area, because there's multiple different kinds. There's 6 to 7 different kinds of diabetes now. Right. Type 1, type 2, gestational prediabetes. And type 1 is an autoimmune disease. And it's something that you deal with all day long for the rest of your life. And the only treatment is insulin therapy. That is the only treatment. There's no
there's no magic bullet. There's no magic bullet for it. And that's crazy though, because like the stigma that's kind of attached to having diabetes is that you ate yourself there, your way to it or whatever.
Diabesity. And people are great. Like, people are ignorant, and I was ignorant too, even before. Full disclosure, we're going to say that I eventually got diagnosed with diabetes. But at the time...
We all know what this is headed.
But at the time, I looked at my brother and I was like, he gets to get out of doing swim practice because, I have the assumption like, oh, he's fine. Right. Because diabetes is like also an invisible disease. You look at me and you look fine. Like you look at him and it's like, well, he looks fine, but there's so much that goes on. And that's why there's so much gray area with diabetes as well, is because it is invisible. But then also when you're not bad enough to like get treatment in the hospital, but it's also, you're not well enough to not think about it every single day, if not every single hour. Yeah. So it's easy for people to kind of write it off, because it's like, oh, if it really was bad, you'd be like hospitalized or something. But people lack the knowledge. So then they don't realize it's also it's also more than just like, I take a shot. Like, they've done studies. A diabetic has to make 180 health-related decisions more throughout their day than an average person. Like, imagine having to decide, like, I know, something as basic as, like, what you want to eat today.
Right.
180 more times than someone else.
Right. Because, I mean, you got to worry about either, you know, your sugar spiking, because if you ate something with too much, you know, bread is also something you got to...
Diet plays a huge part. Yeah. Diet too is crazy because the whole stigma on like healthy eating.
Yeah.
Like what the healthy eating is very individualistic. What might be healthy for me is not healthy for you.
Yeah.
Soda's not great for you, but let's take soda for example. Like if I drink diet soda because there's 0 carbs in it. I don't treat. Though I do have to consider the caffeine intake because caffeine can affect my blood sugar, but diet soda versus regular, I always get the comment, you know that stuff causes cancer. You know that stuff is bad for you. Like, versus the alternative of regular soda, this is better for me because health is individualistic.
Yeah.
Everyone's body is different. And what the blanket statement of like a healthy diet is also wild to me because I choose to eat lower carb, but what people would think maybe is a vegan diet. Vegan isn't necessarily better for me because meat is 0 carbs and I don't have to treat insulin necessarily for that type of base diet. But with a vegan diet, soy is a carb, and so I have to charge more for that. And those are just things that you have to consider, and there's not one size fits all on like what is healthy for you. And with my friends who, not just like things separate from diabetes, but like my friends who have IBS issues, like what's healthy for them is healthy for them. Coffee, onions, garlic, that can be. So it just grinds my gears when people like assume and make blanket statements and have this idea of like what healthy, quote unquote, healthy is. Like,
I mean, that's especially in America. I mean, that's our relationship, our knowledge of food. It's our knowledge of like the medical system, health, wellness all over. And you know, it's a problem, and it's a shame because you know you run into issues. You know, kind of like how we were talking the other day, just being like, you know, random people coming up to you.
Just because I'm in public does not mean this is a public forum.
No.
There's so I should fast forward. Eventually, I'm in high school. I decide I want to go to a service academy, and which is, you know, one of the hardest types of schools to get into. I check out the Naval Academy for a summer. I realize I love regimental life. I don't have to freaking do it. I don't have to make any decisions if I go military. And so I was like very appealed to that, but I realized not the Naval Academy. And then I heard about the Merchant Marine Academy, which is one of the lesser known academies. Historically and jokingly almost always forgotten when people talk about service academies. Right. But so I got recruited to swim there, and I ultimately decide, I want to go there. The average student goes to 18 countries. Hell yeah. And it's free. Sign me up. So I decided that's where I want to go. I set my sights on that my senior year of high school. I got a congressional nomination. I apply. I find out the only way that I can truly get accepted is if I go to prep school in New Mexico first. And so I'm like,
weird deal.
I was like, strange. Strange. I have to go to New Mexico to learn about merchant shipping. Cool. Yeah, that makes sense.
Big nautical fleet out of New Mexico.
Yeah, it's a lot. Yeah, you get a lot of experience on the ocean there. So I was like, strange, but okay, cool. If that's what I get to go there, cool. Right. So I did. I went to NIMI, as it's called, for a year. And wonderful people. Met some of the best people in my life there. I get the grades that are good enough. I finally get accepted to the Merchant Marine Academy. Okay, so I've invested at this point like 2.5 years of my life to this vision of going to the Merchant Marine Academy. And I finally get there. And you have to go through like a month and a half of indoc or like boot camp. It's not true boot camp, let's be honest, but it is more rigorous than if you were to go to like any civilian school.
Right.
So I made it through Indoc, and I shit you not, it was like, am I still allowed to swear?
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
Fuck.
Fuck. Yeah.
Sorry.
So sorry, Mom. She's gonna listen to this too.
She is.
Yeah, I get there and I'm like, this is where I'm supposed to be. I literally woke up like every single day, like, I'm so lucky to be here. And I know they have a 13% acceptance rate at the time. And I knew that there were like, for every one of me, there was 9 people who wanted to get in. And I was like the hype person too of my squad. Like, I was like, we are so lucky to be here. Like, look at this. Like, I just felt like I was on my place on earth. Like, I had found it. And it's the way I always explain like military school is like, it's this weird summer camp. Yes. It's weird. Like, it's a weird summer camp, and it's fun, but it's also like hell. And I was starting to have symptoms. Now I realize I was starting to have symptoms like during Indoc, but they were masked. So what that means is I was constantly thirsty, but I had a Camelback on during Indoc. So like, how would I know that I was thirsty if I always had access to water?
You're working out rigorously, so it's like, oh yeah, of course I'm thirsty.
I felt like shit. Well, of course I'm supposed to feel like shit. You're like, they say that you're lower than whale shit when you're a plebe, and you're not even a plebe yet. So, so I was waking up like Charlie horses like every single morning. I was to my like squad mates, I was a bitch. There were times where I like chewed someone out, and I was like looking back, I was like, they did not deserve that. They did not deserve to get their head chewed off. And then one morning I woke up. It was like August 6th. And so it was a week from like signing, like you becoming a plebe and you're signing to be in the Navy, and you have a commitment now. And it was even less than a week. It might have been like 4 days. So I wake up, go to line up, do the marching and stuff. And I'm like, I need to go to the doctor, because I noticed that my breath was really sweet. And because my brother was diabetic, I knew what the symptoms were. And I shit you not, I thought, in my mind, I truly thought, I'm just doing this for attention. Like, I was writing off my own symptoms because I was like, I just want to get out of class. Like, this isn't real. I'm just doing this for attention or something. I literally was like thinking about that.
Like gaslighting yourself. Almost.
Yeah, exactly. Because of not being healthy mentally. Anyway, that's not mental health. So I decided to go to the on-base doctor. I get there and I'm like, hey, I think I'm diabetic, so I need to check my blood sugar. I need to see if I'm spilling ketones. And they're like, what the fuck? You are self-diagnosing yourself. There's no way.
Yeah, it's very specific too.
It's very specific. And so then they checked my blood sugar, and it was so high that the meter couldn't read it. And I was like, okay, cool. That still doesn't mean it though, right? Denial is incredibly strong. And they check my ketones, which, if you're wondering what that is, it's when sugar deposits like into your urine. So if you find sugar in your urine, that means that the sugar's not being processed in your body. So it's flushing it out by peeing. So, and I had a shit ton of ketones. And so I was still like, yeah, but that doesn't mean I'm diabetic, right? And the nurse was like, you're going to want to call your mom. And I had to call my mom, and I call her, and I'm like, Mom, are you sitting down? She's like, why? And I'm like, well, I think they think I'm diabetic. And she's like, okay, I'll be there. And she was in Florida. I was in New York. That's where the Merchant Marine Academy is. And then like 12 hours later, it might have even been less, 12 hours later, she was in New York at the hospital with me. Later to find out, she thought that I was calling to tell her that I was pregnant.
I mean,
like,
makes sense. Like, are you sitting down? Oh no, you made it this far.
I know, I made it so far. Well, the ratio is like 1-8 for women to men, so fair. But no, surprise. So I was 19 when I was diagnosed. Flashback to that doctor.
Foreshadowing.
Yeah, flashback to that like doctor telling me like, if you're gonna have it, you'll probably develop it by the time you're 19. Was. It's crazy. It's just wild. And I 5% of people who have siblings or parents with diabetes develop diabetes.
Still super low.
So 95% don't, but this bitch is so lucky. So blessed.
So very blessed.
So very blessed. 1 in 500 people, though, in America have diabetes, type 1. And so me and my brother are 2 in a group of 500. So it is wild. And that I got recruited to swim at the Merchant Marine. I had gone to prep school. I had spent a year at NIMI, which later I find out like those credits are very specific.
Yeah.
Those classes are very specific for service academies. So when I tried to transfer those credits that I had taken to like a civilian college, like only 10 credits or something like that transfer. It was like
one semester.
Literally. But at the time when I got diagnosed, it was like having the rug pulled out from underneath you. And it was extremely traumatic, not just because of being diagnosed with diabetes, but also because this goal that I had worked towards was no longer an option. I was too late to get recruited to swim anywhere. I swam for like 13, 14 years competitively leading up to that point. And then no more. I didn't get to compete. And then I have to deal with the fact that I have a chronic illness now. And I'm going to have that until I die. Until there's a cure. I mean, but I don't like to think that there's going to be a cure. Because let's be honest, it's not healthy to think that there is going to be one.
I get the optimism, but 100 years and we're still kind of like...
Insulin was created 100 years ago. And...
Thank God.
Thank God. Because I would not be alive without that. And
I'm like Erin. I'm glad you're here.
Yeah.
Let's keep it that way.
Yeah, it's just so annoying. I wake up every day and how my day goes, a part of that is determined on what my blood sugar is.
All right.
And imagine not, like, I know what it's like to wake up and not have to deal with something like that. And so that's why, like, my particular experience is so unique. My brother's experience with diabetes is so much different than mine because he was diagnosed at a younger age and he went through school with diabetes. Like, I didn't have the experience of, like, bullying and diabetes. My brother did. There were kids who wouldn't hang out with my brother because some asshole kid told them that if they did, they would catch diabetes.
Kids are terrible.
Kids are shit. Kids are shit. And this one particular kid was a shit. Like, but everyone's experience with it is different, and I can only speak to mine, but there are nuances that are similar. Like when it comes to like body image, for example. I struggled with weight and body image and still do, like, to this day for my whole life before I was diabetic. And I'm 19. I get diagnosed with diabetes, and I, in my mind, find the cure of being fat. What does that mean? No. I know. So with diabetes, if you don't manage your diabetes, if you let your blood sugar get high, your body like starts to eat itself, and you lose weight.
Yeah. So
I get to eat whatever I want. And I get to lose I lose weight. And I finally look the way that I always thought that I wanted to look. Mm-hmm. And at the price of potentially, like, going blind, of potentially, like, losing appendages, but diabetes is a fickle bitch because in the moment, you don't see that cost for maybe another 10 years.
Right.
Because if you chronically don't take care of yourself, that's when those instances happen. And it's an eating disorder called diabulimia. And I went through that for about 3 years. I was probably, I hate to say the term good diabetic, but compliant. Yeah. I was a compliant diabetic from like 19 to maybe I was about 20 and a half. And then I remember I missed my first Lantus shot and I frantically called my mom. I was in like at school, and I was like, you need to bring me my Lantus, which is a long-term acting insulin that I have to take every day, which is different than the other type of insulin that I have to take additionally. And she was like, no, it's okay. You're going to be high for a little bit, high blood sugar, but you'll come home and take care of it. And that's when I was like, oh, so like I won't die if I miss a shot, because you're a new diabetic and you're learning, and it's a whole new different way of life. And that's when I was like, oh, so like I might die, but I might also not die.
And that's what fast and loose.
Yeah, and that's when it kind of opened the door to like, oh, okay, cool, okay, so I'll note of that. And I had a mental fatigue too, because as I said earlier, this is every single day, right? 180 times a day. Yeah. And I was like, I'm just gonna turn it off for a while. I don't feel good. I have like headaches and stuff like that, but I'm losing weight. I look great. I look good. And yeah, it's just wild, because society is telling you like you look amazing, but you are truly killing yourself. You are truly killing yourself. And when someone tells you look amazing, you've lost so much weight, you look great, it only feeds that monster of not taking care of yourself. And I was non-compliant for about like 3 years, I'd say. I have a really high pain threshold, so there were times that I probably should have gone to the doctor, like, but you risk. So full disclosure, if you let your blood sugar get super duper crazy, like for example, when I was initially diagnosed, my intake blood sugar was like actually 800 something, which they told me if I had waited a little bit longer, I would have gone into ketoacidosis and a coma. Yeah. So ketoacidosis is when your blood literally turns to acid.
That just sounds
yeah, because it's just like all it's like all unprocessed sugar, because insulin is the thing that breaks down sugar and creates it into energy. So it's
the opposite of good.
It's the opposite of good. Anyway, yeah, so I was non-compliant for 3 years, and then I got back on the horse when I was like, I'm killing myself. I finally found a doctor, too, who was not fear-mongering.
Yeah, I figured that relationship has to be very, like, comfortable. And
yes.
You got to make sure that you can trust that person and they can communicate with you.
The doctor that I had up until that point was very, like, fear-mongery. And as I had said before, denial is insane. You know it's bad for you, but you still won't take care of yourself. Anyway, so the doctor I had was fear-mongery, and the thing about diabetes is you're dependent on insulin to live, so you need that prescription. And I had been dropped by that doctor, and I needed to find a new one. So I found a new one, and I thought I was going to work the system and just say whatever I needed to get like the insulin that I needed. But then I was like, I'm not going to actually listen to you. So I went to the doctor, and she was just amazing. She let me kind of do like my work the system like thing. And then she like asked me a couple questions, and then I just kind of fell apart, and I was like, I'm not taking care of myself. I don't know why I'm not taking care of myself, but I'm not. She like called me on my shit, and I was like, okay, maybe I should start doing that, because I eventually want to have kids.
Right.
And being healthy, which is an individual term, but me, myself being healthy depends on that.
Erin,
depends on that. So I'm in a good place now. But with diabulema, that's like an everyday thing. It's a constant thing. So it's not like I closed that chapter and now I never have to deal with it. But there have been phases where I don't take care of myself. I get burnt out. Like burnout is a huge thing in the like diabetes world. I follow a lot of different Instagram accounts, and it's that social media is super helpful because I don't have any friends in my immediate circle that are diabetic, but looking at how other people like live their lives and what the struggles that they deal with on social media is so helpful, because it makes you not feel alone, and then helps combat that burnout by seeing other people
Yeah.
Like how they deal with that.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah.
Like an automatic community. What's the like one good thing I do like really like about social media is just the fact that you can be like, hey, I'm gonna type in this, and especially like I just see it a lot with TikTok. I used to make fun of it a lot, but now I'm just like, oh, this is kind of beneficial. It's like, oh, I do these things. Oh, wait. There might be some problems
This
I need to address here.
I think it's funny, but is it really funny?
It's a dark humor that I really need to pay attention to.
Yeah. It's but like with like healthcare and access to healthcare. I've said it before, but like health is a privilege. Going back to like that 180 more decisions that I make than say I'm assuming that you make. I would always find it really annoying when people would be like, you know, you're diabetic, but you can do you can do whatever you put your mind to. You can still achieve whatever you want. I think that's such bullshit. It is such bullshit.
Well, damn, Erin.
It is, because you know what? Like, I couldn't be in the military. I'm dependent on something else to live. And I'm not saying that the military should have made accommodations for me. I don't think that at all. But I think having this narrative that you can do whatever you want is just bullshit, because you can't. And you just have to accept that and then live within what you can do. Like, I can't do Peace Corps.
Oh, yeah.
Logistically, I need access to a refrigerator.
Yeah,
I need access to my diabetes supplies, and they can't guarantee that. And so I can't do that. I can't be a pilot, which is fine. I'm not saying I want to be a pilot, but I just think that narrative, like you can do whatever you want and still be like within these. I just think it's bullshit. And speaking to like health privilege. You can leave, I'm assuming, I don't know what your health is, but you can leave the house just by yourself, like without anything on you.
Yeah, 100%.
The clothes on your back, and you can survive.
Yeah.
I cannot. If I want to leave my house, I need to have my insulin, I need to have syringe tops, I need to have glucose tablets, I need to have my meter, I need to have I am dependent on having my like resources to live.
Yeah.
And along with that comes...
It's not just keys, phone, and wallet.
Yeah.
Out the door.
No, it's other things as well. And that is a luxury that people who have health privilege don't have to think about. And it's... Before I had diabetes, it was something that like I didn't necessarily believe in privilege. I would say that was on like the conservative spectrum. Now it's unfortunate, even with having a diabetic brother, like I still didn't necessarily believe in that. But now, after diagnosis and understanding from not having a certain kind of privilege, it makes you aware of, I get it. Like even as a diabetic, I have a lot of health privilege too. I have access to a great doctor. Yeah. There are so many people who do not.
That's one day you were telling me like how much, and I know the price of a lot of medicine has gone up, especially with like the pandemic and everything. But like, you know, you get to a point where like you got to spend like $400 a month.
I got numbers.
Yeah. So okay. That's right. Break it down.
Yeah. So I can
Erin got notes.
I can speak to my line of treatment. So for listeners, if you have any familiarity, there also treatment of diabetes is very individualistic to each person. Each person has different insulin resistance. My brother uses a different amount of insulin than I do.
Okay.
Some people use pumps. I do not. I've been on a pump before. It's all about what works for you. So the course of treatment that I have, I use pens. So that means that there's a screw top needle, and then my pen is like a built-in syringe almost. And so I use two different types of insulin. I have a short-acting and I have a long-acting. The long-acting is 24 hours long, and it kind of just brings you down to a baseline. And then as you eat, you use the short-acting to bring your blood sugar down throughout the day. Hopefully that makes sense. Anyway.
Yeah, tracking.
So there have been times when I was on a high deductible insurance plan, which 51% of the United States are on high deductible insurance plans, which means that you have to spend a certain amount of money before your benefits kick in. At one point I was on a plan that I had to spend like $3,500 before I started to see like my health benefits. That's a lot of money.
It's a used car.
Yeah, see, imagine how much money more I could put into the economy if I didn't have to spend it on like my
interesting.
treatment. I know.
Very interesting.
So without insurance, one type of insulin, my short acting, it comes in a pack of 5. The pack of 5 costs $530 without insurance. And per pen, to break it down, that's $106 a pen. I probably use a pen like every 2 weeks. So that's like $212 every 2 weeks. Okay, but we're just going to focus on one pen. That's $106.
Okay.
For that one pen, there's 300 units in that pen. So 106 divided by 300, that's 35 cents for one unit. On average, for like if I were to have a meal, like, I don't know, let's say like a sandwich with like a side salad, I might charge 15 units. But it's actually 16 units because you have to prime the needle. So that's 35 cents a unit. So 35 cents times 16, that's about, that's $5.56. It's like $5.50.
All right, so you got it now. Not only you have the amount of money you spend just to eat, then it's like there's another cost added onto it because each unit plus the pen.
Mm-hmm.
Shit. So going out's not really a.
Well, it's not just going out; it's eating in too.
Yeah, I was like, but it's even more taxing. It's like going to the.
Imagine you're like, I need to save money. I'm going to eat in today. I still got to pay $5 to eat at my house.
Oh my god!
Because that's how much it takes for insulin to use, and the statistic I said before about 51% of Americans are on a high deductible. I just want to cite that's from a Value Penguin, which is a like comparative website where you can compare insurance. So that's according to their study. It's the statistic that is the most sad to me that shows the state of our healthcare system is within the realm of diabetes is that 1 in 2 diabetics ration their insulin in the United States. I have the privilege that I am not one of those people, but the other person has to because they can't afford it. Like, imagine you have to pay rent to live. I have to pay rent on this earth in the cost of my diabetes supplies.
Yeah, just you wanting to even eat that you breaking down that. I mean, we talked about this yesterday, but then breaking it down even more so to being like, all right, that's one meal, and that meal costs you $5 more. But it's really just like, oh, I'm still trying to survive. The thing that you need to do in order to remain on this earth.
And people would be like, well, why don't you not eat why don't you take a keto diet? That doesn't if that was the cure, everyone would be doing it. It's not like that's not how it works. Like my blood sugar is affected by, sometimes it feels like the wind, but like it can be affected by if I have a cold, what the temperature is outside, if I'm stressed, if I'm dehydrated, like. And sometimes it's like, am I dehydrated because my blood sugar is high, or am my blood sugar high because I'm dehydrated? Because I'm on my period. Like, there are millions of factors that could go into the fact that my blood sugar is affected. But all you have to do is take it day by day. Yeah. Take it day by day.
Seriously.
Our healthcare system, though, is built on emergency intervention and not management not management. And I'm lucky that I was exposed to diabetes at a younger age, because if I didn't know the symptoms, I wouldn't have gone to the doctor that day, and then I could have been into a coma, or I could have seized and had brain damage. I have privilege because my mom was a nurse, and so understand like what compliant diabetes management is. There are people who, it is such a complex disease, and this is one of the only diseases where the patient decides dosage. I have to do mathematical equations to figure out how much insulin to treat myself. I know more about my dosage for insulin than my pharmacist does. There's not many,
Right.
that's not very common.
Yeah.
The difference between 1 unit and 10 units too, like if I'm not paying attention and I give myself the wrong amount, I could cause hypoglycemia, which is when your blood sugar goes too low, and I could also seize and pass out and die.
Right. It's like trying to thread that needle.
It's threading a needle, and it's
this needle is fire and a coma and a seizure on each side.
but it's in it, like I can talk about it in jokingly ways too.
Yeah. The humor kind of gets us through, but it's heavy though.
It's heavy, but it's hard to communicate. People can sympathize, but you cannot empathize with me unless you experience it or have it.
Yeah.
Like I could sympathize for my brother, but I couldn't empathize until I was a diabetic myself, and then like it all made sense.
Yeah. So the academy is done, and then you move back to your parents in Florida.
Yes.
And I mean, what were your thoughts then? Like, where did your mind go in that space?
I didn't have any friends in Florida. I grew up in Wisconsin. My parents moved to Florida while I was in military school, so I didn't have any friends. Which, being 19, 20, and being somewhere where you can't like naturally meet people because you can't go to the bar or anything like that. Right. And my parents were also living in a retirement home like area. Like it was condos, like on the beach. Like there was no people my age. And I'm also like pretty socially awkward. So I was coping by using Tinder.
Okay.
Hell yeah.
What did you call yourself?
A Tinderella.
Tinderella.
I put like Tinderella in my Tinder profile. It's like I can be your Tinderella.
Oh Lord.
I know. I was I was coping. I was coping,
y'all.
I didn't say it was healthy, but I was coping. And that was, I mean, that that's 6 years ago now. So Tinder is a lot different than it is now. So just keep that in mind, listeners. I was
foreshadowing.
Yeah. So I was going to school, and then I was working at Daytona Motor Speedway. I was working in the private boxes and stuff. I was bartending. I met someone there, and they're like, I go to Alaska every summer to do whale watching. I was like, well, that's an option?
Yep.
Oh, cool. Like, I didn't know that was an option. I was like, oh, cool. Like, sign me up. So I interviewed for a job, and that was in February. And then I was in Alaska in May. So for the timeline, for if you're wondering, I got diagnosed in August. I met the person at Daytona Motor Speedway in February. And then I was in Alaska in May. And
so many people's stories. Like, how did you get to Alaska?
I know.
Like,
yeah, right.
It's like, I met this person. They said, hey, you want to go on a fishing trip? Like,
all
right,
for
cool.
real.
Where we going? Alaska. Okay.
I didn't say my story is unique, but
I mean, the lead up, but it got you here.
It got me here.
That's dope, man.
Then Tinder, once again, changed my life. Swiped right, met my now husband.
It can happen.
It's
happen.
Real. It can happen. Real. Tinder, contact me.
Hit your girl up. I'm a walking ad for you.
Me and my husband.
Right in front of the glacier, too?
Yeah, influencer deal.
Let's make it happen. All right. Get a check. That ain't cheap.
And then the rest was like literally history, because a month after we had met, then we like moved in together because he was like, oh, it sucks that you're leaving, because I initially had planned to like leave at the end of the summer. And I was like, well, I don't have to leave. Like, I could stay. I'm not doing anything. Like, and so I stayed. And then we got a dog. I cuffed. I locked it down very quickly.
Okay, hold up. Okay. You're from Florida.
Yep.
All that shit.
Ratchet.
Cinderella. We're from there. You get to Alaska. You're still swiping right.
Yep.
up in when you get here, and then you meet this sweet man.
Sweet man.
Sweet man.
He did not know what was coming.
I was like, he doesn't know this, but I am going to lock this down.
Yeah, for real.
Then a dog a month later. Wait, you move in together.
Yep.
Then you get a dog.
Well, we moved in together and got a dog basically at the same time.
Okay, that's cool. Package deal.
But the thing is, we were always very clear. We were, it was, if we break up, you get to keep the dog, Spencer.
Yeah.
And so that was, I think, really healthy because it's, I think that we're very good communicators, and we always have been. I mean, knock on wood, I would hate to say that and then things change. Superstitious.
No, you get.
Yeah. It's just wild. And he has always been very supportive. He has not always understood, but he has always let me take care of me.
Yeah.
Because when people don't understand and they think that they're helping, that shit is annoying as well, and is a recipe for like disaster.
But the fact that you're taking all this on, like, hey, I was doing this before I met you. This is my burden. Like, I appreciate the support, but I got it.
Yeah.
That takes a lot for both of you too. Like a lot of maturity for the both of you to like kind of get in that space. Because
my brother, I think in relationships that he's had, it's like this is a us situation, like dealing with diabetes, which I don't think it's not like he did that consciously, but and this is my perception too, Jack, if you're listening. But in
what's up, man?
but in my situation, it's always been like this is my burden to bear. I may need help financially, like with it, but I don't expect you to like tell me to check my blood sugar.
Yeah.
Which I've seen relationships that are like that, where it becomes like a mother-child.
Yeah, like a caretaker.
Yeah, like, he's never been my caretaker, and I just don't. I hope he never does have to become my caretaker, which is another motivation to stay healthy. Because now that I'm married, if I don't take care of myself, I would hate to not take care of myself and then eventually become blind, where he then is in a position where he has to become a caretaker.
Yeah.
I would hate to have that burden on him.
Yeah. Well, you're doing good, man.
Yeah.
And you're being realistic about yourself and like kind of giving yourself like room to fail, but also like, hey,
Yeah. Because you have to. It's every day until you die.
Yeah.
And more than likely, I will die from complications of diabetes. The average person doesn't live to be 70 with diabetes, because your body wears over time. Not even if I am the perfect diabetic, just by being dependent on insulin and having this stress, it affects like your timeline. Which another thing is talking about death too. It's like pooping. Everyone does it, or everyone.
I always have like this weird interaction. Well, I've always had this weird interaction with death because I've had a medical complication once, and I technically died. But even then, before then, I was just kind of like, it's the medium from which we go from this life to the next. So I'm not too like worried about it. Yeah, it would suck if I like something terrible happened and I died in a terrible way, but like, I don't think it's anything we have to really fear or run away from. And we can talk about it, then it's not this heavy, daunting thing. That it's not like like Peter Pan and Captain Hook with the clock. With the clock with the clock in his mouth, and he's just like freaking out. I was like, "Oh shit!" And it's like the ever march. It's always like a symbol for like marching to death and aging and whatever. But yeah, man, it's very honest and realistic that you like kind of accepted. Like, hey,
Yeah, I think about it. I think about death every day, up to 4 times a day.
Me too.
Like and every time I give myself insulin, I'm like, I was like, I could die. Like, if I mess up, I could die. If I'm not paying attention, I could die.
That's real though. That is like, it's like, one thing to be like, hey, I'm theoretically, like metaphorically, one day in the far in the future, maybe, and then you're like, all right, I hope I won't fuck this up.
Yeah, exactly. Going back to privilege, like, I don't drink a lot because when being drunk feels like having a low blood sugar to me. And I would hate to be in a state where I may make a incorrect like dosing decision or where I'm dependent on my friends to like take care of me. Like if I do go low and I am drunk, for my friends to have to make the decision like, oh, do we have to call an ambulance or, and so that's like a privilege that people don't have to think of. If you don't have to think about that, I don't get high that often, or like I don't ever get really fucked up because of fear of that. I don't know if you edit parts.
Like, keep going. Now we're good. All right, we good? All right, give it a second.
Oh, there.
Okay, cool.
Sorry.
All right.
We're good?
Yep.
Technical
Technical
difficulties.
difficulties. Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah, we're back up.
I died. As
No,
to the viewer.
And we're back.
And
Modern technology.
the
what can I say?
piano music plays. In that moment, she sees. It's horrible.
That would be a very dark, twisted joke.
I'm sure you go viral though.
Oh, that's not that's not how I want to do it though. I want it to be something like something legit, something honest and healthy.
Yeah.
The drama.
Yeah, it's just death is wild though. I think about it all the time. Not in like an unhealthy way, but like in a like it's coming, for everyone.
Yeah. None of us make it out of here alive.
It's also healthy too to talk about. I think it's healthy to talk about death because then the people who are left behind don't have any questions either.
Yeah.
And this is where the train gets derailed because I don't know where that was going.
Squirrel brains, so good.
Squirrel brains over here. Speaking of squirrel brains, ADHD, I have it.
Word.
Yeah. Shout out to those of you who have it too. But that plays a part in my diabetes management because we are our brain responds to like immediate response, and anything that's like out of sight, out of mind. So with diabetes,
you forget you have diabetes.
it's not that I forget I have diabetes, but it's like the immediate reward that I get from ignoring my diabetes because the repercussions are so far down the line.
Yeah.
That I, it makes my brain works against me for taking care of myself. And also too, I would be a binge eater before. And it took me, late in life, I found out that I had ADHD, or at least came to the realization that I actually had it and not just like jokingly had it. And that explained my binge eating behavior because you get dopamine from like physical,
right? The mouth pleasure.
And so once I connected the dots that like my binge eating was associated, not because I have like an overeating like food disorder, but because I'm ADHD and I get stimulation from eating. Once I had that realization, I could be like, okay, that's why I have this behavior and I can correct it. And it's just wild that my brain, even though I know like what I can do to take care of myself, actively works against me to do those things because of the way that I have like my neural processes.
Yeah.
And that makes it hard and too. And
surprising,
Squirrel.
man. Squirrel.
Yeah.
It's not just about forgetting keys. I think that's like the other stigma that comes with ADHD. People just think like, oh, you forget your homework, or oh, I forgot to, turn off the lights in the house. Like, no, it gets like the stimming.
Yeah.
Literally, like I was having a conversation with some of my buddies who have ADHD, and we were just talking about forgetting certain emotions or forgetting that people exist. And it's just like, it can go, like the whole time is always very different for people and how we interact with it.
We got 2 people in this room who have ADHD, or 3 people that look at time so differently. I look at time.
Objection.
I have the time awareness that it's like the anxiety driven. Like I literally can process like how much a task takes to like the minutes. And I jokingly have told my husband like, oh, I need to leave the house at like 6:47 in order to get there on time.
Yep.
Because I realize how much, like, to the minute, like, how much time something will take. And then I have a friend.
Oh, Kelly.
Hi.
No, Kelly was working the boards today.
That, they can't tell the difference between like 5 minutes and an hour.
It's all the same.
It's all the same.
It really is all the same.
Which is just wild. It's just ADHD presenting differently. And also, funny enough, my brother has ADHD, but it presents so much differently in men than it does in women.
It's very true.
In the society, what society finds acceptable. For my brother, his presentation was unacceptable to society. So my parents took the time and effort to get him an actual diagnosis.
Yeah.
Versus me and how I presented as a woman, my neuroses were acceptable for society. So then they never pursued a diagnosis when I was a child, even though I always wonder like what my educational experience would have been had accommodations been made for me, knowing that I had this, ADHD. I feel like we need to change the name because it's not
Dave.
Yeah. Dave, you said
It's
TikTok.
Dave.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
It was dopamine availability. God dang it. I screenshot because I do this every time I try. Yeah, it's like a dopamine
it's Dave.
availability.
I have Dave.
Yeah, I have Dave.
Me and Dave are real close. But
Dave's my guy.
and going back to the whole topic of health and like what is healthy, there's mental health, like there's physical health, there's many different, it's a whole spectrum. And when people make blanket statements about really anything, there are more intricacies and
Always, right? It's just like, why must y'all be this way? And
when people
stroke us.
like oat milk, for example, you're gonna be like, where the fuck is this going? But
I'm willing to go down this path with you. What's up?
Oat milk is higher in carbs than regular milk. But it's healthier because it's non-dairy, but to whom?
To whom?
Like it's easier to break down with insulin than it's harder to break down with insulin than it's just
right. And then Kelly, she's got some issues. She can't. She would not have a good time with the glutens.
The glutens.
all these glutens out here in these streets.
Yeah. So it's just
so healthy to whom?
Healthy to whom?
Yeah.
Like it's very ignorant to make statements about. But I understand like there's the ethical issues that come along.
Yeah.
Like the amount of plastic that I produce just to live, I feel shitty about. I create a lot of waste, but there's really no way around that. If I were to go, I can't have it. That's a privilege. I can't have a zero waste lifestyle. I can minimize my waste as much as I can, but I cannot live an effective zero waste lifestyle because I use a new needle point, which is a plastic, every single time I use a shot. Yeah. If I wanted to go zero waste, the amount of work that would be is astronomical. For example, I would have to boil and then sharpen my needles if I wanted to do that, which is just in modern medicine. We don't do that. It's not even a question. It's like,
that's like going back like 100 years. Oh,
yeah.
Erin.
I burped.
You're human.
I know.
Be human.
But yeah, like there's ethical dilemmas too that I feel bad about but at the same time, it's not my fault. It's that I generate that waste. I need it to live. Not even jokingly. I seriously
I don't think there's a burden you need to carry, personally yourself.
But I just look at like the amount of waste that I create. Like I'll fill like a bag full of needle points that are used, and then I'll empty them all out at one point. And I just kind of like look at it all and dump, and I'm like, that doesn't make me feel great, but it's not my fault. And one day maybe that will have a better option, but for now,
in time,
that's all we have to deal with.
What resources do you think are available for folks who have diabetes and want to learn more about it? Like,
there's this one particular, like when it comes to mental health and like the whole spectrum of nuances with diabetes, there's this one Instagram that I really like that's new. It's called Rebel Pancreas. And
dope.
Yeah, they talk about like stigma, and they talk about mental health and that it's a whole spectrum. I really like that Instagram. Another Instagram that I follow is Sweet Librarian. She is like a diabetes like influencer, I guess you could say. But and she has celiac disease as well. So
so gluten's definitely off the table for her.
Gluten's definitely off the table for her.
Yeah.
And so she has like spoken at JDRF things as well. You have to be careful when you're looking at nonprofits. So I do have to say, we talked a little bit about that the other day. And what I mean by that is there's one nonprofit in particular. It's called Beyond Type 1. In Maine, there was legislation to make insulin for all, or a safety net bill. And the Beyond Type 1 wrote a letter to the Maine legislation or legislators, and they said, no, this legislation is not necessary because that's why we're here. That's why nonprofits are here, are to help the public. It's not, we and it's like, why, if you're an advocate for diabetes, if you're an advocate for diabetics, how are you not being like, hell yes, insulin for all? If you are not for insulin for all, you are not an advocate for diabetics. But you want to know why? Because Beyond Type 1 takes a lot of money from Eli Lilly. That is a manufacturer of one of the largest insulin producers in the world. And it's in their vested interest to make sure that there is not legislation that makes that medication available, because that cuts into what? That cuts into profits. And so you have to be really careful when you're doing, not just for diabetes, but really for any like health-based nonprofits, is like, where do they get their money from?
Exactly.
What drives them? And that was recent. That was like within the past year or two with Beyond Type 1. So screw them. I feel strong.
No question about how you feel about it.
I don't want to be like, fuck you, but fuck you.
Adjacent.
Just a big old.
Erin.
Yeah.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you for having me. I feel really, I've always wanted to talk about this particular like subject on like official platforms. So thank you for allowing me to do that.
Yeah, I wanted to have this conversation. We kind of talked about it like kind of in passing before, but I'm just glad that you actually wanted to sit down with me and do this, because I want to have these conversations and fun ones. We can talk about Kardashians or something, but let's talk about this stuff.
We can talk about Nick Jonas and how much he sucks too.
Oh no, not Jake Jonas.
Nick Jonas. Well, he's a diabetic.
Oh shit, for real?
Yeah, and so he is like a spokesperson, and gets paid by he presents a lifestyle of like diabetes that is like makes it all sunflower and roses. It's like, if you can afford to have a Dexcom, your life is great. And a Dexcom is a continuous glucose monitor. Yeah. Which is extremely ignorant and harmful to the people who cannot afford.
I'm about to say, how much do one of those cost? That just sounds expensive.
I mean, it depends what your insurance is, but I can't quote how much it would be, but at minimum like an extra $50 a month, I'm sure. That's on top of your regular treatment. Right. And you still need test strips too, but that's a whole different topic too. Okay.
Till the next one.
Till the next time.
Till the next time.
Well, thank you.
Thank you. And thank you guys for listening. I hope you guys like this episode. If you want to research more, if you want to get some more info about diabetes, reach out to me and I'll reach out to Erin, or you can find resources out here in the community. Stay dangerous. Night show.